The Train of the Dead by the Prowler. Log entry for the night of January the 1st, 1870. Night watchman John Rawlings, the graveyard shift. Finished making my first rounds of the station building, then a quick patrol of the train tracks in each direction of the docking area. No disturbances to report at this time. The midnight train came and went without a hitch. Cargo unloaded without issue, and what few passengers there were safely ushered onto the train. Now I wait nervously for the night's unfoldings. As previously reported in my log entries for the past 2 weeks, an unscheduled train will arrive at the station at approximately 3 a.m. It is not a train of this earth, but a spectral one. A train to usher the dead to and fro. I have been ignored and received no response from my superiors of my reports from the past 2 weeks, while I am simultaneously being mocked by my fellow employees nightly. I hear the ridicule and laughter from them as I oversee the loading and unloading of trains, and notice the strange looks they give when they think I'm not looking. My reports have obviously been leaked from the head office, and while you all may think me mad that the nights are getting to me, I assure you my story is true. The train of the dead is real. It is blue in color, with a transparent quality to it and a muddled glow. It moves like a vapor, or a fog rolling in from the shore. You can hear it coming a mile away, its eerie, macabre whistle warning of its approach. It's a sound I've come to dread these past nights. And when it reaches the station, it does not just continue by, it stops. I sit and watch as spirits enter and exit the train from the platform, in complete fear as to what my eyes are seeing. I was unnoticed by the dead for the first week, but was spotted watching from the ticket booth 3 days ago by what looked like the train of the dead's conductor. Now every spirit knows I'm here, and they're angry. They don't want the living so close to them. I don't belong here, and they let me know it nightly. They seem to be getting more hostile towards me as the nights go on. I lock myself in the office and watch as they take over the entire station, moving about as though they did when they were alive. It plays out as a typical night at the train station. There are spirits lined at the ticket booth to get their tickets for the next train. There are spirits working the ticket booth to give them their tickets. There's spirit baggage handlers and platform loaders, spirit families lining the rows of seats, waiting for the next train. It's a complete working train station for the dead. They all go about their business like there's not a care in the world, until one of them notices me. Then all hell breaks loose. They start to shriek and become violent. They rush the office and start clawing at the door. They're like ravenous beasts trying to get to their prey. They do not like the living. It's as though my presence is an insult to their spiritual world. It's almost 3 o'clock. I can hear the train of the dead approaching. I am in danger. I have no illusion about it. My pleas of help have gone unanswered. I have been ridiculed each night. Well, it has gotten worse and worse for my safety. If I do not survive the night, Know my death will be on your hands. If you should find me dead in the morning, heed my warnings before another soul becomes a passenger on the train of the dead. Passengers by Bobby Dangerously. I stepped on the train with great happiness, as I am finally going to see my girlfriend after a few months of being apart. I put my bag in front of me as I walked down the aisle. As the aisles are so close together, my bag wouldn't fit between myself and the seats. I look up and find my aisle and seat number 10C. I sit and slide my bag under the seat in front of me, and I glance out of the window as I have the window seat. I stare at all the people hurrying around trying to get to their destinations. My heart is pounding with the beat of them, but for another reason. Happiness. Just pure happiness. I close my eyes for a moment and visualize walking off the train and running to see my girlfriend running at me, and we hug. I can't wait for that moment. I smile. As I get set in, I notice how comfortable the seat is. It's a nice leather seat. These new slimline trains are great. The nice thing is, the train car isn't too crowded, and I have the aisle to myself. I hear the shout of, "All aboard!" and the train starts to move. I get a jerk back at the start. It's a cool feeling, as now I know the train is heading towards my baby. It's a long travel, though, 8 hours, but I have a little sleeping to do, as I am sure I won't be sleeping at all tonight, if you know what I mean. I was awoken by a scream of panic. I looked around in a daze, and 11 other passengers were up and looking around. I asked the person behind me, "What is this screaming about?" She looked at me and pointed 3 seats ahead of me and across the aisle. I looked with hurriedness and saw a male passenger slumped, laying back against the chair, and his mouth and eyes wide open. As I look at the man, he starts to decay right in front of all of us. Everyone starts screaming some more. He grew old, as if he turned 100 in a minute. Hair grayed, skin wrapped tight around his skull. It's an awful, frightening sight. I got a little sick and scared. As the train staff came and removed the body to another car, I assume a medical area, the panic calmed down a little. I wonder what happened to that man. He decayed and looked very old, so fast. Frightening. I shook with a shiver. I'm still very tired, as the train ride is too relaxing, and I doze off again. I was awoken by screams of panic again. This time I stood quickly and saw a female and a male passenger who were sitting together, dead. They both were slumped over just like the first passenger was. A child walked up and about to touch the female, and I screamed out, "Don't touch her!" Who knows if they were infected with something? As the crowd looked on, the 2 dead passengers started to decay quickly, hair turning white, skin tightening around the skull, just like the first deceased man. Someone said that every time we enter a tunnel, a person dies. That was 3 tunnels now. 1 a while ago and 2 around that curve back there. I thought that was a crazy idea, but I looked and saw a suspicious person sitting at the front of the car. He stared at me and smiled, then looked away. I need to pay attention to him. I can't fall asleep any more with what all is happening. As the train continued on, I kept an eye on my suspicious-looking fellow. At that moment, we went through another tunnel, and after we exited, another passenger, the one behind me, has died. I stare and watch as she decayed right in front of me. I turn and slouch in my seat, with my hand up to my mouth. I feel panic, and I am frightened to death. What can I do? I am trapped on this train. I have to get to my destination so I can see my girlfriend. It's been too long since we've been together. I look at the passenger at the front of the car. He noticed I was looking at him, and he just smiled again. He is creeping me out. After a while, one by one, each passenger was dead. All are removed by the medical team. Now there is 3 of us left. This is pure craziness. Panic and dread set in. I start to sweat. I lean back on the seat. I bring my knees up and wrap my arms around and start to cry. I want to see her so badly. I look and see a tunnel ahead. I say to myself, no, no. And as the train enters, I feel tiny little pricks all over my back coming from the seat. I feel warm all of a sudden, and then the pain disappeared. I look down and see my decayed body being taken away. I was the last one. The man from the front of the car got up and left the car to another. I looked around and noticed that all of the deceased were sitting in their seats. They were just sitting there, as if they were still alive. But they were ghostly forms, not their real selves, not flesh and blood, but spirits. What is this? What happened to all of us? I looked out the window as the train stopped. It was my stop. I see my girlfriend standing there, and I try to scream, but she won't hear or see me. The man that was in front, the one I was suspicious of, came back to the car with another and said, "The experiment worked. We trapped the spirits of the passengers in this car. Now, on to phase 2. What does that mean? I feel the tug and the train starts to move, and I look at my girlfriend who is still standing there. I can't get off the train, and the train pulls away. I see her, and she waits. The Woman by the Tracks. Every night at 11:47, the midnight freight tore through the valley, its whistle echoing like a warning through the hills. And every night, without fail, someone saw her, standing just beyond the flicker of the train's headlight. They called her the Widow in Black. She stood by the tracks where the ground dipped near Hollow Creek, her figure draped in a long, old-fashioned mourning dress, the lace veil over her face fluttering in the wind of the passing cars. Some said she lifted her hand as if to wave. Others swore she reached out, palm open, pleading. The train crews learned not to stop. The one engineer who did, back in '82, was never the same again. It was near midnight when Marla Jennings took her shortcut home across the tracks. She'd heard the stories, of course. Everyone in town had. But she didn't believe in ghost tales. Not until that night. The rails began to hum underneath her boots. The sound grew, deep and metallic, the vibration crawling up her legs. The whistle cried in the distance. She hurried, eyes fixed on the far side of the embankment. Then she saw movement, something dark against the pale gleam of the moon. A woman. Marla froze. The figure stood maybe 20 yards down, motionless, as if she'd been waiting there all along. Black dress, black gloves, a long veil that stirred, though there was no breeze. "Hello?" Marla called, her voice trembling. The woman turned her head, slowly, deliberately, and though her face was hidden, Marla felt the weight of her gaze. The air grew cold. The rails screamed as the oncoming train rounded the bend. "Get back!" Marla shouted. "You'll be hit!" But the woman didn't move. As the light from the engine flared, Marla saw it. A shimmer, a transparency, the faint outline of ribs beneath the fabric, as though her body were made of fog. The train thundered past, the wind whipping so violently it knocked Marla to the ground. When it was gone, the tracks were empty. She thought it was over until she looked beside her. The woman stood inches away now, veil gone, face pale as bone. Her eyes were hollow, lips blue and cracked. She opened her mouth, but no sound came, only the faint hiss of steam and the echo of wheels on steel. Marla scrambled up and ran, the chill clinging to her like smoke. Later, trembling in her apartment, she found an old news clipping online. Train derails at Hollow Creek, 1912. Bride among the dead. The photo showed her. The same dark dress, the same veil. Her name was Eleanor Price. She'd been on her way to meet her fiancé. Every night since, she stood by those tracks, waiting for a train that would never stop. And now, sometimes, when the whistle blows at 11:47, the engineers swear they see two figures standing side by side in the dark. The Phantom Line. The night was starless, an ocean of black stretching endlessly above the barren fields. No crickets sang, no wind stirred the grass. Only the hum of distant rail lines whispered through the silence, faint as breath. Then came the tremor. The ground shivered beneath her boots as she stood by the old tracks that hadn't seen a real train in 50 years. Her lantern flickered once, then steadied, though its dim flame seemed to recoil against the oncoming dark. She had heard the story since childhood, how a train of ghosts thundered through this wasteland on moonless nights, carrying the souls of the damned. Most people laughed, but she had seen the timetable carved into her grandfather's tombstone. The next passage was tonight. A sound like tearing metal split the air. The rails began to glow faintly, veins of cold blue light snaking into the distance. Then suddenly, it appeared. The spectral express roared into being with a banshee's wail, its carriages translucent, flickering between decay and grandeur. Once, perhaps, it had been a fine locomotive. Now, it was a corpse of one, its ironwork twisted, its wheels screeching sparks that burned without heat. Wisps of luminous smoke coiled from the engine, forming ghostly shapes that dissolved as soon as she looked too close. Her breath caught as faces flashed in the windows, pale, tormented, pressed against the glass as though begging for release. Their mouths moved soundlessly, and yet she could feel their screams vibrate through her ribs. One window stood open. From it, a gloved hand extended, a conductor's hand, skeletal and still immaculate. "Ticket, please." The voice was velvet and void, smooth as oil on water. Her heart hammered as she raised her lantern, its weak light trembling across the figure that now stood beside her. The conductor's uniform shimmered with tattered dignity, his hollow eyes reflecting the ghost light of the engine. I don't have a ticket," she stammered. He tilted his head. "Then you ride standing." Before she could step back, the world blurred. Her feet struck iron. Cold mist clawed at her lungs. She was inside. The corridor stretched endlessly, lined with seats filled by silent passengers. Some wept without tears. Others stared blankly through her, their bodies half faded, their eyes wide in eternal terror. Each held a glowing slip of parchment, tickets burning with blue fire. Through the window, she saw the landscape sliding past in impossible speed. Forests of bone, rivers of shadow, skies stitched with lightning that made no sound. The conductor reappeared, smiling thinly. "One-way passage," he said. "You must have wanted to see where it goes." She tried to scream, but her voice was gone. She looked down. Her hands were turning transparent, veins glowing faintly with the same ethereal light that pulsed through the train. Outside, the fields returned to silence. The rails cooled, the glow fading to nothing. By dawn, there was no sign the ghost train had ever passed, except for one new sound on the wind. A distant whistle, and someone softly crying for home.